is shitty to you, you want to make sure that they suffer in some way, and that also serves as an example for other people to be better to you. So it's a way. Yeah.
It says witchcraft to women what sex robots are to men.
I think witchcraft to women is what becoming big and strong enough to beat up other people is to men. It's a means of control that isn't always.
I kind of, you read this fantastic article, on Penny Volvers a while ago, obviously, which I absolutely loved at the time, but they kind of posit this.
Yeah, I heard it once that submission is feminine. So when a woman submits, she's becoming more feminine. When a man dominates, he's becoming more masculine.
Sex robots are kind of, will trick these unsuccessful men into, trick their minds into thinking they're not at an evolutionary dead end, basically. And I kind of, so the way you just described it, sorcery kind of tricking yourself that you're actually exercising more control than you actually have, and kind of, relieving yourself psychologically in that respect, which I find.
Well, when a man falls in love with a woman, you can say he's bewitched, but he has gone crazy, right? So I don't think that's such an extreme perspective. Okay, what the hell happened to the trail? Is that the trail? Is this the trail?
Because that's different to what I initially thought, because you said, you used to be a real rationalist, and how overly real rationalist, whatever. I'm a regular synagogue attendant, and I'm quite involved in from that perspective, and so I kind of saw the way you initially described it as a substitute for religious community, religious observance, and obviously there are elements of that in religious observance, prayer and the like might have might give other people in your circumstances that similar feeling of control or the like. So I wonder, but that's separate. So witchcraft as a substitute for religion is different to the way you described it, where witchcraft has this long independent lineage and has different kind of characteristics and different role
it's
itself.
not as communitarian. But if you look at like a prayer versus a spell, they both have ways of saying, I would like the universe to express contingencies for other people that are good for me. Yeah. And there can be, I want contingencies that are good for me. You can say directly to God, I want, my adaptive strategies to have. I want to meet a mate, or I want my mate to be better to me, or I want to be better to my mate. There's actually a really interesting book that I read also in preparation for my book, which is called The Power of a Praying Wife. And it's sold millions of copies. You actually don't know, if you hang out with other well-educated people, how popular books are like this, that like regular, people, and religious people read. You hang out with secular people, you don't know that. And she talks a lot about how instead of nagging your husband directly or trying to change his behavior directly, instead you should ask God for you to be a better wife. And essentially, she's kind of getting at what I'm getting at, but like in a different way. She's saying what actually prayer is doing in this context, I think, is saying, when you pray to God to say, how can I change to get what I want more? It's changing your basic way of trying to change your husband from nagging and punishment to potentially reward and satisfaction. It makes you less kind of micromanaging of his behavior, which one of the worst things that women can do that they lose their power, and I talk a lot about this in the book, to lose their power with a man is by complaining or nagging or just recreationally punishing him, because the best way for him to.
So this is Diana Fleischman, evolutionary psychologist, and she's working on a book, How to Train Your Boyfriend.
Not feel pained when you're mean to him is to become desensitized to your feelings. And that's what women are usually training men to do if they engage in a lot of punishment for no reason.
I think that's very powerful. I want to double click on that for a moment before we kind of move on. So in a similar vein, you've said that you're also, you're inclined to have a bias towards punishment, or that women have a bias towards punishment. I think you've said that. And then specifically, I found it really interesting, you said recently that you're inclined to punish your partner for forgetting something, even though you know it's kind of accidental. And now, I love the way you were speaking about it, because it was a conversation between two women, and I just honestly felt this total, revulsion and like fear. And that's not like, that's just like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all, just like a personal kind of Pavlovian reflex. I'm just a guy here, I'm just talking to a woman, let's forget all the psychological stuff. Why is this going on? Why do you do this to us?
It's just been so important. I mean, women's life, it was a life or death scenario. If I was to ask you, why aren't you happy with your wife just having sex with other people, however many other people that she wants? Why do you want to prevent her from doing that? And why do you feel sexual jealousy? I think that it's similar kind of manifestation in women to want to control men. And the person I met you through, Rob Wiglin, recognizes who he is now, as opposed to this is I think a kind of interesting segue. Is that everybody thinks that who they are now is really important, even though who you are now is just a result of your genes, plus all the training other people have done on you over your life. You have like an irrational attachment to yourself as you are now, as opposed to who somebody else could be. But Will McCaskill, who you may know, read the very first draft, and he said it made him feel physically sick, which I'm going to ask him to blurb that for me.
Well, yeah, so it is funny. I mean, I really appreciate you talking about it so candidly and with such self-awareness. So this isn't, I'm zero offended, but that exact reaction is the one I shared, because I mean, it's obviously, my ex-girlfriend, she was very annoyed when we broke up, because she basically said, I've trained you so much. Yeah, and
that's really funny.
all that benefit's going to accrue to someone else.
Yeah.
Now my wife would not necessarily agree that I've been domesticated at that point, but that's another story. So it's kind of related to that. The kind of next thing that I've been thinking about is a general field, and I think it's kind of relevant to what kind of things you speak about, are the things that don't work if you name them. So I think, so I'll give you two examples. I think you've said training actually does work if you're quite explicit with your partner, and I'd like to understand that a little bit more. But the two kind of examples, I think there's a classic philosophical debate about scapegoating, and so communities often scapegoat, and that leads to this kind of release of tension. But if you call it scapegoating, then it doesn't actually work. You've got to genuinely believe that the scapegoat was the source of tension. But then specifically in relationships, my wife, for example, would often come to me to discuss a problem, or we'd be discussing a problem, and I'd go, okay, well, this is the solution. And then we'd kind of keep talking about it, and I don't really understand what's going on. You've told me what the problem is, here's the solution. Like, why are we talking about this? And then I realized over time that she's not talking to me because she wants an outcome or a solution. She's talking to me because the process of talking, and that process itself is what's of value to her. Now, that's kind of fine. I kind of understand people work in different ways. When I point this out to her, she wants to stab me in the eye with a pen, because she'll be like, because she'll be telling me, I'm like, okay, so this is one of those scenarios where you don't want the solution, you're just talking to me because this is a process, and she does not like that at all. So I want you to kind of tell me about, what of these aspects that you've identified, kind of, you can observe as an outsider, but actually stop working if you name them.
So most things don't stop working when I name them necessarily, but I'll go back to a story about Rob. So Rob and I were dating, and he upset me a lot, and I wanted him to come down to see me. It's a 2.5-hour training.
So it's easy for a man to be able to understand processes that work when you name them. So we all have a love map or an erotic template where we imagine all sorts of things are going on in sexual interaction that aren't actually there, but we're imputing them into the sexual interaction to heal wounds from childhood. We're playing fantasy games, and we're trying to thread our way through an erotic minefield, right? So men should be able to understand this.
And he said, you want me to pay a cost because I've upset you. And I said, yes, I do. And he's like, do you want me to pay more for my train ticket? Would you like me to sit on a small bed of nails while I come and visit you? And he got it exactly right? I wanted him to pay a cost. And it still worked for me for him to pay a cost when he told me about it, because he still paid the cost. He still came. He still took a 2.5-hour train to come and see me. And so it did work in that instance. But another instance in which I talk a lot about gift giving. So actually, let me go back to your wife and her irritation with that. Basically, when somebody...
This is not meant to be a therapy session, but I appreciate it anyway.
Okay. How do you feel about that? One thing I'll say is that what often happens is that the red pill people and the manosphere people call it shit testing. You could call it testing the bond. I can ask my partner to say I love you to me all day long. It's very easy for him to say that. It's super easy. But if I really want to test how much he likes me or loves me, I have to impose some kind of cost. He has to give me a costly signal, which makes it more clear that it's an honest signal. So if I talk a problem to death with you, and you already seem to know the solution, but we're talking about it for an hour, you've invested your time in doing something that you perceive as useless. If I say you think it's useless to talk to me, or we're talking through this problem because it's an honest signal of your commitment to me, it stops working, because I don't want you to tell me about how it has instrumental value. The whole honest signal is that it has no instrumental value other than as a reassurance to me. This is why romantic gestures, if you get me something useful, it's not a romantic gesture, because I want the only instrumentality of it to be the reassurance.
So, out of interest, why is that? I can understand that being highly relevant to the courtship period, why in a marriage, like, how do you, and maybe this is the kind of wrong person to ask, because I'm trying to figure out myself, how can you opt out of some of those costly measures while still, having a happy life, basically?
Unfortunately,
Okay.
unfortunately, it's very difficult. So I saw some show about autistic people getting married, and the woman was complaining that her husband hadn't said "I love you" since they got married. He's like, "Well, I told you I love you then. It's still true now. Why haven't you told me?"
Man, I totally agree with that, dude. Seriously.
Right? Well, of course, I have to. I mean, really, it's just a constant, it's a constant assessment. Especially if you have 3 small children, your bond and your support are very, very important. And she sees you all the time right now because of lockdown. It's clear that you're still invested and you're still around. But there's a few different things, or 2 main things that women are assessing when they do these kinds of testing the bond tests. One is, yes, you're still committed, you're still willing to commit, you're not divesting, right? So how much you're listening, how much you remember, all those things are signals of how much you're invested in the relationship currently. And that's something that just, women have a tendency to want to test all the time. There's some individual differences. I certainly know women, I know a woman who's been in a relationship and she and her partner, they don't even talk every day.
So some women test you a lot more than others. So it's not like all women impose just a plethora of tests. Right? There's high maintenance and low maintenance women. Certainly prefer the low maintenance.
They're long distance some of the time, and she doesn't ask him about what he's up to. She couldn't care less, literally. She's actually a little bit on the spectrum, which is kind of interesting. Whereas there are women who constantly need to be cuddled and reassured. I have this joking thing that I do with Jeffrey. He just puts one arm on me, and I'm like, no, I want both arms. I always want both arms. And he's like, are you afraid I have like the other arm around somebody else? I'm like, it feels that way with both arms. Like the other arm is being used by some other bitch. Like, where is she? And so it's not rational.